I have a feeling that fun gas-powered cars are going to make a massive comeback within a year or two, because we have Dodge, first of all, almost panicking now to put the internal combustion engine Hurricane Inline 6 Charger into production because the EV has just fallen completely flat in sales. We have Ferrari delaying its EV plans as well, and then now we have Volkswagen coming out with a ridiculous Volkswagen GTI that feels like it's not in line with what you would expect Volkswagen to do just 3 or 4 years ago with all these ID plans for all their EVs. And now they put out the 50th anniversary edition of the Golf GTI, and this is faster than a Golf R. It's such a cool car. It doesn't make sense to me that Volks put it out, but I am very happy that they did. So we're going to have a look at what this vehicle actually is. I'm going to make a couple of tweaks, redesigns to the front end, because we have some interesting features in the front that I'm not so, entirely sure about. We're going to see what we can do about that, and also maybe switch out the wheels and add a little bit of, width, plantedness in the rear end, even though it is a front-wheel drive car, I know that. But first of all, before we jump into Photoshop, and do these redesigns and changes, check this car out from a design standpoint. We have to, this is important because this is what this Golf GTI is all about, the spec of this vehicle. So this limited edition GTI beats the Club Sport and the Golf R in surprising ways. The anniversary edition gets a 321 horsepower engine, and you can get it with the optional performance pack with titanium exhaust and uprated chassis as well. So celebrating half a century of GTI with the Golf GTI Edition 50. All cars get 321 horsepower. It sits lower by 15 millimeter, and you get bespoke upholstery as well. The performance packs adds tighter dampers, lightweight wheels as well. So in the Edition 50, the fastest, most powerful GTI ever, and one that make you think twice before signing up for a Honda Civic Type R, or even the Golf R for that matter. Even though the biggest benefit with the Golf R is the all-wheel drive system. That is such a huge benefit for me if I were to choose between a Golf GTI or a Golf R. So this turbocharged engine makes, the original GTI engine makes 262 horsepower. Regular European GTI makes 242 horsepower and 297 in the GTI Club Sport. But with 321 horsepower, the Edition 50 comes a lot closer to the Golf R that comes out at 329 horsepower. So only 8 horsepower less than the Golf R, and still all of that power going to the front wheels. I'm sure they have some way of figuring out not to make this torque steer when you're turning and just flooring it. I'm sure the Volkswagen engineers can figure that one out. So torque is also up to a Golf R matching 310 pound-feet of torque, versus 295 for the Club Sport and just 273 for the stock GTI. And as I said, drives the front wheel. You have a 7-speed dual clutch transmission like every other new GTI from 2025. You can't get it with a manual anymore. And to me, it just does not make sense. Okay. I would want to see the Golf R also have a manual, but that one, I can sort of see why we put a dual clutch automatic as the only option for the Golf R. But the GTI is supposed to be the less serious Golf than the Golf R, and that is the one you want to have with a manual transmission. Even though we do have 321 horsepower, the Honda Civic Type R is still a manual, and that can handle all that power. So why not just offer the GTI at least with a GTI? I don't understand, with a manual, I don't understand why. So 0 to 60, 5.5 seconds. Compare that to 5.6 for the Club Sport and 5.9 for the GTI. The Golf R's all-wheel drive traction gets it out of the hole faster. 4.6, so it's almost a second quicker, even though the power is very, very similar. This is the power of all-wheel drive, specifically when you're taking off from a standstill. You have 2 more traction points to the ground to put all the power down, and that results in a 1 second almost advantage for the Golf R going 0 to 60, and that is also a reason why I would probably prefer to get the Golf R, even though this is a very, very cool Golf. But as I say here, as the runway, you know, the drag race goes on, the GTI 50 edition is actually going to pass the Golf R because it is lighter. And they say here, this is pretty fun. It's pretty funny by Volkswagen, because Volkswagen is always, they've always been very meticulous and very detailed about all the numbers and, you know, all the design. Everything's supposed to have a specific reason for being there. And they say the top speed of this edition is probably limited to 168 miles per hour. That's an official Volkswagen statement. And I love to see that. I love to hear that, because it gives this car a little bit more mysterious vibe to it. You don't know really what the top speed is until you go to the Autobahn and test it for yourself. But it's very unlike Volkswagen to give an answer like that. That's not 100% clear, because that's what I'm used to hearing from Volkswagen. So you got a black roof, mirror caps and tailpipe, unique side stripe as well, a red glazed finish for the 19-inch Queenstown alloy wheels, mark out a 0 option anniversary model from other GTIs. Buyers can choose from 3 colors here. Main colors: white, gray, black, and 2 colors that are not available in other GTIs: moss green and Volkswagen's classic Tornado Red. I think Tornado Red just looks so good. It also looks great in white. And you can get you get special plaid trim for the sports seats for this version too. So the only GTI to get the DCC adaptive dampers is standard and rides 5mm lower than a regular model. Volkswagen is clear that the base edition 50 is still very much a competent all-rounder rather than a track-focused hero. But if you want more of that, you can add the performance pack to this, and that adds in an additional 2 degrees of negative camber, 20% stiffer springs that also reduce the ride height by a further 5mm. So this is going to sit pretty low to the ground. Love it. Straight from factory. You get harder bushes and optional 235 section Bridgestone Potenza race semi-slick tires help cut understeer. You also get the 19-inch Warmino forged wheels borrowed from the Golf R, and of course the Akrapovic titanium exhaust. All of this adds up to a weight saving of 30 kilos compared, or 66 pounds compared to the non-performance pack Golf. And this is also the fastest GTI and fastest Volkswagen badged production car of all time around the ring. You can see that here. I mean, it looks pretty quick to me from the inside. It looks like it has way more power than 321 horsepower, but then we also have a professional race driver, so he knows how to manage all this power. I can't really tell, you don't really see any torque steer either. I mean, torque steer was a thing of the 2000s and the early 2010s, I think. Right now you can have probably maybe not a 500 horsepower front wheel drive car, and they still manage to figure out the torque steer to make it steer properly under power and cornering. But it looks pretty cool here. But it can't claim to be the fastest front wheel drive car title, because that goes to the Honda Civic Type R, which was faster around Nürburgring in 2023. No pricing yet for this. Production starts later this year. It will probably be more affordable than a Honda Civic Type R. Now the question is, would you who are watching this video, would you take the Edition 5 over a Golf R or a Civic Type R? For me, it is a pretty easy choice, to be honest. I'm going to go for the Golf R, because I love all-wheel drive cars. Because how often are you actually going to go 125 miles per hour a street race to that? Yes, this is going to be faster to the end point, but off the line, when you're having fun in red lights and stuff like that, you get a second quicker with the Golf R thanks to all-wheel drive. And I think from day-to-day driving, the Golf R is just a more fun car. And you can't even get this with a manual, so it doesn't really matter if you wanted a manual in that way anyway. So let's jump into Photoshop here, and let me show you this design that we have. I think it looks pretty cool to me, this new Golf. A couple of things that I'm a little bit confused about is, first of all, let's just talk about the line flow here. First of all, we have these beautiful lines in the Golf looking very crisp. For example, these lines in the hood here looking very, very clean. Nothing crazy going on. One simple line for the key graphics to start at the top. We have some very chiseled looking headlight unit here with a light bar in the middle. Illuminated Golf Volkswagen logo in the front end. Now, this is the area where I have a little bit of trouble looking at, because first of all, I think this maybe sits a little too high. This black graphic creates a super thin bumper and separation between these two features. But the main thing I have a problem are these arms down here. They look something like arms that stick up in a very strange way, and they don't really have a connection to anything that goes in this big black hole that we have. So what I want to do in this case is to redesign this and simplify it. I think that is in line with Volkswagen's design philosophy, to just remove this arm altogether, and instead we have it end at this point, sticking out something like this. And in addition to that, these wheels, I'm not sure what I think about these sort of red faces on a black rim. It doesn't look too great in my opinion. So what I want to do is just let's take the wheels from the Alfa Romeo 4C. Similar enough in design with the round holes. We get some bronze, dark bronze color to it, and we can apply that onto this design. Let's see what that is going to look like. So if I do the redesigns here, this is the result. Just have a much cleaner front end and also slap on some bronze wheels onto this and remove that red that we have in the original wheels. I think this looks so much better, and that's just my opinion. And then we have the wider rear tire here as well. Even though it is a front wheel drive car, it doesn't need the wide rear tires. But I always want to have the rear, not bicycle tires in the rear, because when you look at it from a straight rear view, I want this to be planted properly on the ground. That means that we need to have fat tires in the back. Doesn't matter if it's front wheel drive or all wheel drive or rear wheel drive. So here's the before and after. Not sure what you think about the redesign, but personally I think it looks a little cleaner, specifically in the front end with those arms removed that just look like, I don't know, they should have a connection to some key graphics, and that is what makes it look strange to me. So let's go back to the original here, and let's talk about the side view here, because Golf, what I love about the Golf, specifically the Golf, when it comes to hatchbacks and fun hatchbacks like this, is they have not strayed away and turned this into a coupe shape. This is the quintessential hatchback shape that we're going to see, meaning that we do have one box right here in the back, and we have one box in the front end for the hood, of course, in the engine. Now, looking at the proportions, clean proportions. We have one single sharp shoulder line right here. We have this line that's been in Golfs since the beginning, Giugiaro design, this thick D-pillar in this case, or C-pillar, going right over the rear axle, creating a little bit of mass here to push this area down visually onto the ground and giving it this forward motion when you have all this mass in the rear shooting the design or the volumes forward. We have a nice line in the lower section here, cutting out a little bit of area down here. I do like this black side skirt that we have in the very low section. That gives it the feeling, the vibe that it's hugging the road all around, because you have that same black graphics in the rear and also here in the front lip, looking very nice. As we talked about the wheel design, they look pretty decent. I mean, they don't look ugly. I just think that is something that I personally would probably switch out to some silver wheels. Some very classic design for the Golf, and just put some silver wheels onto this in combination with the red. I do think the bronze looked cool as well, but probably silver, dark silver would look very nice. Look at the roof line here, how beautifully designed this is, and this feels like a line that was sketched by hand, because it's so satisfying to just put this line out as I'm doing right now, because it feels natural for the hand to flow in that direction. Now, looking at the rear end, this is an area where I wouldn't change a single thing on this design. I think it is a beautiful rear end. Definitely my favorite view for this vehicle. It has, as I said, classic hatchback designs. I love the wing up top, creating some, it balances out the rear diffuser, because this is a pretty aggressive or complex graphic when you look at everything else in the middle. And then you have the diffuser in the lower section, a couple of which, of course, exhaust pipes here. We need to have something to balance this graphic up top, and they did that with this wing. Now we also have this classic, going back to the early 90s design for the bumper, integrated in this waterfall design coming down from the taillight unit right here. You can see we have this line that actually goes in to the headlight unit and then falls down in a waterfall shape here into the rear end and creates a properly designed bumper that actually sticks out further than the rest of the car. And I love to see that we still have this waterfall design intact in a 2026 model year Golf. Now looking at the taillights, love that they're blacked out now since 2025, giving it this more menacing look. Very chiseled design for the taillight units. And we also have some dynamic feeling on the interior, in the internal pieces here, because this, as you can see, thicker LED going into thinner LEDs and a couple of LED dots in the middle. It's just a beautiful design, symmetrical, thankfully dual exhaust pipes, creating this symmetry that I want to see in cars like this. And thankfully, I hope this Golf, the hatchback or the GTI, will never turn into one of these coupe-shaped hatchbacks that we have in a lot of other manufacturers. Now looking at the interior, last but not least, the thing here with this interior is that it definitely feels, this screen is just way too oversized. I mean, look at this thing. It feels like it's coming from a Ford F-350 truck or something like that. This is not the size of screen we want to have in a small Golf. Shrink it down like we used to have in the previous generation was the perfect integration of a screen. Now it just sits up here and sticks up way above the dash. You can see the line for the dash is stopping right here, and this sticks up way above that. So this screen, to me, I would pay a lot of extra if I had the option to just shrink this screen down by maybe half the size for me personally. And unfortunately, we don't have the manual transmission, but the rest of the interior looks absolutely fantastic. Look at these seats. We see some cool stitching here. We see this plaid fabric texture in the seats. We have a nice, thick, bulky steering wheel as well. Proper buttons now, not these gloss touch buttons that we used to have. Now we have proper buttons. Unfortunately, not for the climate settings, which you can see are still integrated in the software here. But the good news here is that look at this gauge cluster. This is also what I want to see. You know that already. We have a nice cave for the gauge cluster here, fully digital, customizable, do whatever you want. This, even with the big screen, I'd say this is still a pretty cozy space to be in. So the future now, going forward, I think within the next year, we're going to see a lot of, I think they're doing it right now. Car manufacturers, they're starting to think, how much money do we want to spend on developing new, specifically performance or fun EVs? Are they actually going to make us a return in the long run? And I think a lot of companies are starting to realize that now with the Dodge, for example, the Challenger is a great example of this. I mean, they took the quintessential, the last remaining muscle car on the market, the Challenger and the Charger of the previous generation, and they turned it into an EV, and they thought they were going to sell a lot of them. I mean, you already knew that it was not going to be a success, and that is the reason why they're pushing forward the date for the release of the internal combustion engine, because they need to start bringing in some revenue for all this money they spent developing this new model. And then we have Ferrari dialing back on their EV plans. They don't really know what they're gonna do. So I think it's a beginning of a new golden era for fun. It doesn't have to be V8s. You can have 2-liter 4-cylinders like this with turbos and stuff like that. Maybe even a hybrid option. But I think there might be a new golden era for small, fun cars with still funky and cool designs moving forward the next 5 years or so.